Hello, Merry Christmas. Sorry, I got this new hat and it's kind of, anyways, it's a little distracting. We're not meeting tonight, it's Wednesday night, and I wanted to do just kind of a Christmas special devotional, more of a recap of what we've talked about a couple weeks ago. We talked a couple weeks ago about the nativity, the birth of Christ, and what that means and how that applies to how we understand Christ and what he did for us, dying on the cross, raising from the dead 3 days later. We talked a little bit about Zechariah and how John the Baptist came as a precursor to Jesus to show us how he comes about. Mary was a virgin. The angel Gabriel came to her and said, "Hey, you're gonna have a baby." And Mary said, "Yeah, cool." When, where, and everything like that. And with Zechariah, it was different. He came to the epitome of his life, the very start of really the climax of what he was doing there, and he messed it up. He didn't believe the angel. The angel came to him and said, "You're going to have a child, John, and you're going to name him John." And he was like, "Well, yeah, I'm too old. There's just way too old." But with Mary, she was a virgin. The hurdles to jump over were far greater than what they were with Zechariah. But she believed God and she trusted in God and she was faithful with that. So Christ's arrival on this earth, it was somewhat of a precursor. The story with Zechariah was showing what Jesus was going to do for us, for all of humanity there. See, when Zechariah was in the temple, he was in the holy place, which is outside of the Holy of Holies, where God literally dwelt. It was the place, this time of incense, was a place where God was known to communicate with his people, right? So they had to sacrifice a lamb to get in there where God communicated with his people. And just like moving that over to what Jesus did for us, is Jesus was that lamb. Jesus was that lamb that needed to be sacrificed so that we as a people can communicate with God, that we can hear from God no matter where we sit. We could be anywhere at all. We no longer have to go to the temple because we're now the temple, right? And so sprinkled throughout this nativity story, with the story of Zechariah and the story of John the Baptist and how he came as a precursor to Christ, we were given a little glimpse into what God is going to do, what Jesus is going to do for all of mankind. So it's showing the state that humanity is in before Christ. Before Christ, in order to commune with God, we sacrificed this lamb and we went in there and we burned this incense and we communed with God that way. And we, in order to atone for our sins, we had to go into the Holy of Holies and all of that stuff. And no longer, that veil is torn. We're now the temple. And so what this season is reminding us of, what we're trying to remember in this season, we're remembering what Christ did for us and what the reason he was to come here for us, to break this broken system, this covenant that was meant to be temporary. It was meant to set up Christ, to restore our relationship with God. So you may be thinking to yourself, well, what's the big deal? You know, why is it important that we recognize Christ's birth? For one, Christ came for you, to restore this state that we're in. You know, it's not too far off to say that you have a tendency towards towards sin. We have this tendency towards evil, right? And it's no fault of God's, but a fault of our condition. Now that we can see good and evil separate from what God's definition is, it's a redirecting to filter all of our understanding through God, through God's understanding of what it is to be good and evil. It's a redirecting of our thoughts and our minds, and a changing of our hearts and our spirit, so that way we're not seeing what is good and bad through our own lens, but we're seeing what is good and bad through Christ's lens. And we're seeing that without Christ, that we would not be able to do that. That the atoning for our sins and our fallen state would be null and void. And so this season, as we move towards, well, tomorrow's Christmas Eve, and next day is Christmas, we just remember that the reason for this season, the reason we're remembering Christ's birth, and not just his birth, but it's the start of what everything he did for us, his death on the cross, and his resurrection, and his atoning for that. So that's just a little piece of what I was wanting to share with you. It's a little snapshot of what we've talked about over the past few weeks. So I hope you guys have a wonderful Christmas. We won't have a normal service until January 6th. So we hope to see you then. We can't wait to see you then. Until then, we hope you have a wonderful time, Christmas and New Year's and all that fun stuff. And we'll see you then.